son soleil. J'aime Paris et j'aime sa pluie. J'aime Paris et j'aime ses nuages. J'aime Paris et j'aime ses oiseaux. Et j'aime Paris. J'aime Paris. Et j'aime Paris. J'aime Paris. Et j'aime Paris. J'aime Paris. Et j'aime Paris.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm taking you along with me on my week-long class trip to Paris, France over spring break. Arcadia University's preview program allows students to study abroad during their very first year for 1 week over spring break. So today, Friday, March 13th, I'm traveling overnight to Paris on a 7.5-ish hour flight, arriving at Charles de Gaulle Airport tomorrow morning. This is my first time traveling to Europe, and fair warning, I have very little French knowledge, so please bear with my pronunciation throughout the rest of this video. After a pretty smooth flight and jumping 6 hours ahead in time, we touched down in Paris, collected our bags, and drove to the hostel we'll be staying at, called the Fiat. And please meet Charlie, the orange cat, who is our concierge and companion for the week. Luckily, we were able to get our room keys and drop off our things, or have a quick outfit change, before heading back out to grab brunch at a cafe about a 10-minute walk away called Paul. Going as a group for the first time on foot in Paris was the perfect way to start exploring our neighborhood, grab a bite to eat, and begin adjusting to the time change. Many chocolate croissants were purchased that day, and I didn't hear any complaints. Bon appetit! After eating, we walked right across the street to our second closest metro station, Rochereau, where we got our day passes and headed to our scheduled riverboat cruise on the Seine to start seeing the city. This was also the first time we saw the Eiffel Tower in real life, through the window of the metro, and it was such a surreal experience. As a big architecture appreciator, seeing it in real life was more impactful than seeing it in any photo or video. Once we got off the metro, of course we had to grab a group photo, and then we walked a couple of minutes to where the boat was docked. We boarded and finally got to start seeing Paris in all of its glory. It was honestly the perfect way to begin exploring the city. Even though we were a little tired, it was so exciting to finally see everything we'd been talking about for weeks in class. Seeing the city from the water was incredible. Getting our first looks at the rich historical architecture, passing under beautiful bridges, each with its own unique artistic and architectural style, people watching passers-by, seeing historic landmarks like Notre Dame, and really just soaking it all in, with my camera in clutch, obviously. Oh, and by the way, this is my friend and roommate for the week, Bridget, a fellow art major. The riverboat cruise was something that stuck with me for the rest of the week, exploring, having a foundational knowledge of the layout of the city after the tour. After the cruise, we headed back to the metro and returned to the hostel to get ready for dinner. Our goal was to stay up until a reasonable hour so our bodies could start adjusting to the time change. Not long after, we headed back out and walked about 30 minutes to the Rue de Montparnasse, which is known for having tons of great crêperies, recommended by our professors. We ended up going to a charming spot called La Petite Bretonne. They were super accommodating and even had English translated menus, which was really helpful. I decided to get a savory crepe since I was definitely lacking protein after hours of travel and had already had plenty of carbs from breakfast. Although in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd gone for something sweet anyway. Everyone seemed to really enjoy dinner, and we took in a beautiful walk back to the hostel before having an early-ish night to shower and decompress after such a long day with very little sleep. Bright and early the next morning, we grabbed breakfast at the hostel, which was included and pretty decent, before catching the metro to Père Lachaise Cemetery, where we had our first school assignment, a scavenger hunt. We had 3 famous figures to find, and I was the designated group photographer to document everything and capture the experience from our perspective. Père Lachaise is one of the oldest and most prestigious cemeteries in Paris, dating back to the early 1800s, and it's the resting place of many well-known figures. Between the beautiful and unique architecture of the headstones and the natural elements like tree-lined paths, fresh flowers, and even birds singing overhead, the space felt incredibly alive, and it was a beautiful stop in our week in Paris. Afterward, we headed back toward the metro, stopping to grab a little something for lunch before our next school activity, a walking tour of the historic Les Marais, followed by some time exploring the shopping district. Bridget and I split the most delicious margarita pizza before following Professor Bonin on her guided tour throughout the city. These moments were especially enjoyable, walking together as a group, and soaking in some of our first real sights of the city on foot. Once the tour wrapped up, we were done with our scheduled activities for the day. A group of girls from my class, plus Sadiq, decided to stick together and do some vintage and secondhand shopping, along with a bit of window shopping. It was so fun to wander through the stores, chat with shopkeepers, and enjoy the city more independently. Afterward, we hopped back on the metro to return to the hostel for a quick break before dinner. That evening, I went out with the same group from the night before, Bridget, Nicole, and Juju, this time joined by special guests, MJ and Azima. We walked to a place called Asir Café for dinner, and I wasn't super hungry, but everyone seemed to enjoy their meals, and the company definitely made it worthwhile. Later that night, I met up with Azima, who had scoped out the perfect spot to see the Eiffel Tower sparkle the night before. Together, we took the metro to Passy so I could experience it for the first time. We stood on a bridge not too far from the metro stop and took plenty of pictures as it lit up in the dark. My first time seeing it sparkle. The Eiffel Tower sparkles for 5 minutes at the top of every hour after sunset, usually from around 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., and sometimes as late as 1 a.m. depending on the season. We also met a few other girls and travelers from all over the world, and we took turns snapping photos for one another. Watching the tower sparkle was overwhelming in the best way. So beautiful that videos truly don't do it justice. I even FaceTimed my mom to share the moment with her. After the sparkles faded, we walked down to the Seine and sat for a bit, ignoring the cold breeze and watching the boats drift by. Then we headed back to the metro, already looking forward to whatever adventure tomorrow would bring. As always, we kicked off the morning with breakfast in the hostel before catching the metro around 9 a.m. to the Latin Quarter for a student-led walking tour. We each had assigned locations that we researched and presented, and we visited places like Shakespeare and Company, Notre Dame, and the Pantheon, just to name a few. I especially enjoyed learning about the Pantheon, refreshing my memory from art history earlier this fall, and seeing it in person was amazing. We also stopped by the Arena de Lutece, an ancient Roman amphitheater, and it was so cool to see how these historic spaces still exist within the modern city today. Around noon, we made our way to the Louvre for our reservation. While waiting in line, we took in the exterior of the palace, which was absolutely beautiful. Once inside, exploring the sculpture galleries and endless rooms was honestly a bit overwhelming, but in the best way possible. And as an artist, it's incredible to experience the monumental scale of these works in person. Even though my feet were already hurting, after walking nearly 23,000 steps the day before, I pushed through and finally got to see the winged victory statue of Samothrace, a sculpture I fell in love with in art history. We eventually made our way to the Mona Lisa, which was, of course, the most crowded room, and at 5'2½", I realized quickly that I could live without fighting through that sea of people. There's no way to see the entire Louvre in one day, but we definitely made the most of it, and it's something I'll never forget. We made a quick stop in the gift shop for postcards before heading back towards the 5th arrondissement, so MJ could go into Shakespeare and Company while the rest of us did a little souvenir shopping. I got some fridge magnets and other goodies for my family, as well as a couple of keepsakes for myself. After spending some of our euros, we took the metro back to our home base in the 14th arrondissement and stopped by our new favorite patisserie, Paul, for an early grab-and-go dinner. It was quick and very good and gave us a chance to rest our feet for a bit back at the hostel. Later that evening, Azima and I took MJ to a more well-known spot to see the Eiffel Tower sparkle. This location felt much more lively than the quieter spot near Passy. There was a big crowd, a street performer, and people from all over gathered to share the moment. Afterward, we helped MJ navigate the metro to meet up with some other friends, and then headed back in for the night. By Tuesday morning, we seemed to really have our routine down, starting with breakfast at the hostel before walking as a group to Defarrochereau to catch the metro to Montmartre in the 18th arrondissement. This was our last student-led walking tour, and it was such a fun way to wrap things up. Everyone shared what they had prepared, and there were a lot of interactive activities along the way. Montmartre is actually one of the most historic and artistic neighborhoods in Paris. It was once home to famous artists like Picasso and Van Gogh, which is kind of crazy to think about when you're just casually walking through it. And when I say walking, I mean climbing. The hills here are no joke, like genuinely some of the steepest streets I've ever seen. Combine that with the 61,000 plus steps we'd already walked over the past 4 days, and I was absolutely huffing and puffing the entire way up. But once you make it to the top, it is so worth it. My group presented on the Sacré-Cœur Basilica, which sits at the highest point in the city and offers absolutely stunning panoramic views of Paris. Fun fact, construction on the basilica actually started in the late 1800s and took decades to complete. And the white stone it's made from is actually self-cleaning, which is why it stays so bright and looks so striking compared to other buildings in the city. Anywho, after the final stop on our walking tour, we took a quick break on some benches nearby, soaking in what felt like the sunniest day I'd seen in months, before hopping back on the metro to head to the Musée d'Orsay. The museum is actually located inside a former train station, which already makes it feel really unique. And as our professor Dr. Heitzman said, the best museum in the history of museums, and honestly, I don't entirely disagree. It's pretty awesome. The space itself was so charming with beautiful artwork, incredible architecture, and this giant clock overlooking the city. It just had such a different feel compared to the Louvre, a little more relaxed but still full of amazing pieces. I was also doing an Instagram takeover today for my college's study abroad account at Arcadia Beyond Campus, so this museum was perfect for content. I was definitely in my element. I especially enjoyed the Impressionist artwork and the Van Gogh collection, especially the Starry Night. Of course, we grabbed some postcards to commemorate the visit, and it was such a beautiful place to spend the afternoon. After the museum, we headed to our group dinner at LM Restaurant, where the whole class got to enjoy a meal together, which was really nice. And then we headed to, you guessed it, the Eiffel Tower yet again. I had to end my Instagram takeover with a clip of it sparkling, and honestly, it's not something you get tired of, especially when you're only there for such a short time. Overall, it was such a fun-filled day. On Wednesday, March 18th, we took our longest metro ride of the week, and our last one all together as a group, taking the regional rail just outside of central Paris to visit the Palace of Versailles. Originally built as a hunting lodge in the early 1600s, Versailles was transformed by King Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King, into a symbol of absolute monarchy and royal power. He moved the entire French court there in 1682, essentially making it the political center of France. The palace was designed to showcase wealth, control, and grandeur, with everything from the architecture to the gardens carefully planned to impress. It remained the royal residence until the French Revolution in 1789, after which it eventually became a museum. We had an 11 a.m. reservation, so we arrived early and waited outside to get ahead in line. Even just from the exterior, I could already tell how grand it was, but I still had no idea what to fully expect stepping into such a massive property. Inside, everything was just over the top in an impressive fashion. There was so much gold, incredibly detailed architecture, beautifully preserved rooms, and ornate furniture. Some areas have been turned into more educational spaces now that the palace functions largely as a museum, which made it really interesting to connect the visuals with the history. I especially loved the artwork that reflected the history of Versailles and its gardens. Every once in a while, Bridget and I would stop to look out the windows at the gardens, which stretched for acres and acres. Everything was just so incredibly impressive. From the molding, to the wall paintings, to even the smallest details like the doorknobs, all the way up to the massive rooms filled with dramatic war scenes and collections of art. It was just detail on top of detail everywhere you looked. I'm always so drawn to the ceiling paintings, framed with intricate gold molding, those kinds of details that just feel almost unreal in person. But the most impressive space was definitely the Hall of Mirrors. It's lined with windows on one side and mirrors on the other, reflecting all the light throughout the room, with an elaborately painted ceiling and gold chandeliers. It was completely breathtaking. After spending a long time wandering through the palace, we finally made our way outside and walked along the gardens where everything was starting to bloom for spring. Daffodils, greenery, all of it. We took a quick break on a bench not too far in and just soaked in one of our last days in Paris. The whole experience felt really surreal. Afterward, we caught the regional rail back into the city and, of course, stopped at Paul for a little dinner before heading back into the room to rest for a bit. Later that evening, we took the metro to go to a quaint, semi-underground bar called Cabaret des Merveilles, located in the 6th arrondissement, which was such a nice way to spend our last late night in Paris. Playing cards, listening to good music, chatting with some fellow travelers, and just enjoying good company all around. We caught the metro back to the hostel and began looking forward to our last day in Paris tomorrow, completely free to wander the city on our own, so stay tuned for that.
I will go to Paris.
For our last day in Paris, Bridget and I woke up bright and early and walked the same 10-minute route we did on our first day when we arrived, back to, you guessed it, Paul, to grab breakfast before heading out on our free day to explore the city. There, we actually ran into Nicole and Juju, and we all ended up enjoying a little pastry breakfast outside, which was a great way to start the morning. After fueling up, we headed to Défense-Rochereau station to catch the metro to our first stop of the day, the Musée de l'Orangerie, also known as the Monet Museum. We had booked 11:30 a.m. reservations a few weeks before the trip, so I was really excited to finally get to see it in person. It was a beautiful morning, and there was barely any line when we arrived. We checked right in and started with Monet's water lilies on the first floor, these massive panoramic canvases that wrap around the entire room. It was such a quiet, peaceful space, and a little surreal to see the scale of them in person. Then we made our way downstairs to see other artists' work, including pieces by Picasso. The whole museum was really calm and beautifully curated, definitely the perfect way to kick off our day. I grabbed a postcard to continue my little tradition of collecting something from each stop, and then we stepped outside to admire the garden. We sat for a bit before taking a walk through the center of the city, passing through parts of the theater district, and just enjoying the atmosphere. From there, we caught the metro back towards Montmartre for some last-minute souvenir shopping and a bit of thrifting before our final evening in Paris. We had noticed a lot of cute shops during our strolls through the city on our walking tours, so we decided that this would be the perfect area to come back to. We walked into a few thrift stores, a bookstore, and classic Paris souvenir shop, but I especially enjoyed this antique thrift store called L'Objet qui Parle. Sorry for my pronunciation, but that literally translates to the object that speaks. It was super narrow but packed from floor to ceiling with all kinds of odds and ends. I ended up finding a vintage box camera made in France, which felt perfect as an avid photography lover. I thought it would be such a meaningful souvenir to remember the trip by. After a while of shopping and basically spending most of the euros I had left, we stopped at a nearby Italian place called La Pignata and shared a pizza for lunch, which honestly hit so well after a long morning. We spent some more time walking around before catching the metro back toward the central city. From there, we took about a 30-minute walk along the Seine, soaking in the sun and the city one last time and making our way toward the Eiffel Tower for our first really up-close view of it. We snapped a few pictures for Instagram in front of the tower, which was really amazing to see in person, because the closer I got throughout the week, the more I realized just how massive and intricate it really is. We then walked over to a grassy area nearby and sat for a while, just enjoying the day. And no, we didn't go up the Eiffel Tower because, spoiler alert, later that evening we had plans to go up the Arc de Triomphe to catch the sunset, so stay tuned for that skyline view. After soaking in the atmosphere for a bit longer and noticing all the incredible ironwork and detail on the tower, we headed back to our nearest metro station to make our way to the Arc de Triomphe. The Arc de Triomphe sits at the center of a massive roundabout at the end of the Champs-Élysées. I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry. And instead of crossing the huge multi-lane traffic circle, you actually go through an underground tunnel to reach it safely. We were also able to use our museum pass to enter, and then began climbing the spiral staircase about 280 steps to the top. And I knew that would be the hardest part of the day, because after nearly 91,000 steps over the week, yes, that's real math, my legs definitely felt every single one of those stairs. But the view at the top made it completely worth it. We arrived just in time for the sunset and got to see the city from above, which felt like such a full circle moment, recognizing all the places we had visited throughout the week from one view. Seeing the Eiffel Tower in the skyline was absolutely stunning, and we stayed up there waiting for it to sparkle one last time while we were in Paris. We met some other travelers, took pictures for each other, and it honestly felt like the perfect way to close out the trip. Afterward, we headed back down the winding steps, took a few pictures in front of the Arc up close, took the metro to the hostel, made sure we had all our things packed up, including all of our new souvenirs, and got a few hours of sleep before waking up around 4:50 a.m. to take the shuttle back to Charles de Gaulle Airport and head home. Even though it was exhausting, it was really nice sitting at the airport and talking about everyone's final day and whether or not anyone actually got any sleep. We boarded the plane and headed back for another 8-hour flight home. Overall, this experience is something I'll never forget, and I'm so grateful for it. Arcadia study abroad opportunities are truly amazing, so if you're interested, definitely check them out and I'll link them down below. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content by me. Bye!